Transcripts and recordings of the podcast may not be used for any purpose without the direct written permission of the podcast owner. Welcome to LITE It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action, to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of LITE It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah Musherah. I am so very excited about this week's episode because I have a very special guest. All my guests are special, but some mean more to me than others. Let me just say that. And today's guest, Mrs. Romeldia Salter, is someone I've known for probably over 20 years. We used to work at Chicago Public Schools together, but not within the same space. But that's how we met. And Romeldia is just a phenomenal educator, administrator, and now consultant. And she's here to talk to us today about executive functioning skills for your young students, as well as academic success, and how to help parents navigate this educational space with their children and young adults. So welcome to LITE It Up, Romeldia. How are you?
Thank you so much, Aginah. I'm great, and thank you for having me on LITE It Up.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here. We've got lots to talk about, but I'd love for you to take a few moments just to give a little bit of your background to our audience. Uh, I will tell the folks that you are a Spelmanite, right? Is that the appropriate way?
Yes, that's what we do. That's what they started doing, so I'm going to do it too. Yes.
So why don't you give us a little bit of your background? You've been an educator. I don't want to put the number of years, but you've since retired from Chicago Public Schools. But if I recall correctly, your background's in early childhood education, and then you advanced at Chicago Public Schools, worked in an administrative capacity where you were a principal of just a wonderful school on the far south side of Chicago. And now you've recently retired. Your husband retired you, so I'm going to try and grow up and be like you.
I will not. I will not. So that is the dictionary word, right?
Yeah.
Retired. And when we say retired, we have visions of people just sitting back on a sofa, kicking their legs up, but the work still has to be done. And so I'd like to say that I've transitioned so that I can do follow my passion and what I deem important, where I feel we're missing the mark in education, especially with our Black and Brown students, is really supporting their executive functionings, helping them learn how to learn. And
Yes.
so through my over 30 years in education, that's what has always resonated with me. And when I started teaching, I started teaching as a substitute teacher on the west side of Chicago, teaching pre-kindergarten. But after receiving the proper certifications, my first class was at first grade at Ariel Community Academy. And so that really was where I pulled some of the things that I needed as a student. I needed direction with how do I organize things? How do I remember to remember? And how do I learn? And I think that when teachers are very intentional with integrating that into instruction, that's where the magic happens. And so we are so focused on curriculum. Districts spend an inordinate amount of money to purchase new materials for teachers to learn. And it's really all about basic, goal setting, teaching students how to be organized, how to use academic planners, how to study, how to take notes. We don't teach those things. And the magic happens when teachers are intentional with that and when parents work together so that they can set up systems at home to make sure that students are set up for success.
I'm glad that you kind of walked us through um, just your experience coming into the educational space and touching upon um, what districts do in terms of pushing the curriculum and changing the curriculum. Um,
Yes.
I can remember, I mean, my children are older now in college and senior in high school, but I remember when Aaliyah and Kamal were in third grade and math changed. I can't remember what it was called, but it was not the way we learned math.
Exactly.
And it's like, why are we changing, how we teach or how students are expected to learn? But what being in the higher ed space, what I see now is that our students come to college and they don't know how to study, like you touched upon, because they've been trained in such a way from pre-K through 12, you study for a test or your focus is on standardized testing, but they don't have the executive functioning skills or organizational skills that are necessary to be successful. And then they become overwhelmed. But that even happens before they get to college. But sometimes parents don't recognize what the issue is. We think it's something else. Either our student just doesn't want to learn the work or what have you. So we miss what the root cause is.
We make assumptions, right? We
Mhm.
make so many assumptions. And it's because it's like what we think we know when we tell a student to study for a test.
Right.
And we don't teach them what does that look like. Well, how do you study for a test? You know, there was an article recently put out by the Atlantic, the elite college students that can't read books by Rose Horowitz.
Mhm.
We rush through and we're missing the mark because I will go back and say that Kevin says this all the time. People do what they want to do. People focus on what they want to focus on. And so I will use athletics, I will use music as a primary example. Because when you want to be good and you want to be the top player at any sport, you put in the time,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
When students, when kids, when anyone, when you want to be that star basketball player, that star track athlete, that star volleyball player, you put in the time so you can earn and keep your spot, right? So we don't, and coaches are so respected because they're constantly working on that person meeting the goal. We miss that mark when it comes to academics because everybody's not working in tandem to realize that whether it's math, social studies, reading, science, chemistry, biology, whatever that thing is, you can do anything you put your mind to. It's practice. So
Mhm.
if the star athlete can, if I can say Stephen Curry, I've read an article about how many free throws he practices, right?
Mhm.
If it's 500 or 1,000 because he's developed that muscle memory, then a student can do the exact same thing with math problems, right? With
Mhm.
writing, with reading, things that I would tell parents. It was I read this a long time ago. It was an actual poster that I took. It was the top 10 ways to become a better reader. And it was read, 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 read. And it was listed down the line, right? So
Yeah.
I would say that all the time. and parents, I love the response that they get, because I wanted them to understand that to be good at anything, we have to just put the time in and practice. And so for some reason, we kids, I'm not good in math, or I'm not good at that, or I don't like to read. But
Mhm.
it doesn't correlate to, well, you want to get the grades, you want to one day get a scholarship for college, right? Or let's take college out of the equation, because every student doesn't want to go to college, right?
Right.
You
Mhm.
want the job, you want the promotion, you want it. So you just have to train your muscle, your mind to just do that thing so that you get good at it. That's it. And it's just that simple practice that we're missing, because, believe it or not, in middle school, that the Illinois State Board of Education only requires 1 hour of a day for math, social studies, science, and reading. So that's the requirement, right? And
Mhm.
so you feel limited, and teachers constantly were like, we need more time.
Mhm.
We need more time, because 1 hour of math, look, it takes 15 minutes for the student to get settled, right?
Right.
And so now you talk about all of these demands on teachers. They have a lot of demands. And so now, we also need them to teach students how to learn. Well, by the time they get to the sixth grade, you think they'd know, right?
Right.
And so, it starts all the way back
Mhm.
at early childhood, because when we talk about executive functions, that's our brain development, how we develop that frontal cortex and memory. Kids are routined when we wake them up in the morning, when we fix breakfast, when we drive to school, the route we take to school,
Mhm.
where we park, and then the schedule that the school has. All of that is teaching students what comes next. And
Mhm.
that's developing their brain.
Mhm.
And so, teachers, we need to keep that in mind every day. Parents, we need to keep that in mind, so that we giving them the routine so that they can master things. And even in such a short period of time, there are small things that teachers can integrate and parents can integrate, so that we can make that come to life for students, how to learn. That's pretty much it.
So let's talk about this executive functioning a little bit more, because I remember the workshops that you did, and you helped so many students. I still have a friend of mine who's also an educator. And you know how we educators are. We are very particular when it comes to our own children and making sure that they have access to different resources. And now I will say this, I think sometimes we, our children, I'll say this, feel an enormous amount of pressure when they have an educator as a parent to do well, or, sometimes they'll go with the flow with what we've outlined for them, and sometimes not.
Yes, yes.
So you have put on these executive functioning seminars and sessions for young people, just to help them get prepared and get back on track, or get on track. Could you talk about what executive functioning means and what it looks like for students? Because as a professional, we may be thinking one thing and it may be the same, but if you can just explain for our viewing and listening audience what that looks like for a young person.
Yes, it is simply putting all of the things in order that happen in your mind and making it make sense. So when you think about it, before 9 o'clock, the average person has done probably over 150 or 200 activities that you've thought about. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you get ready, you eat your breakfast, things like that, right? And then all of a sudden now, parents are going to say you need to make up your bed, right? That's something that may not be in the natural order of things for me, but I need to remind you to do that, okay? um, these are things that keep us organized, thinking about thinking. What comes first? What comes second? What comes next? And really pausing to think about that. And when our environment is set up to support that, that's that nature versus nurture, or nature and nurture theory, right? When our environment sets us up for that, that part of our brain develops more so than it would if we didn't have order in our homes or in our lives to know what comes next, right? What the expectation is. Well, some students need more of it, and it can be taught how to be organized, how to set goals, right? How to manage themselves, because there's a funny thing about time management. You really can't manage time, but we can manage ourselves in
Right.
time,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone, including us, we're like, we got so much to do. I got so much to do. How can I get all of this done? When actually we do have time. It's what we do with our time, and so how does that look? you know, um, we get all of these papers, we get materials, and now after the pandemic, our use of technology has, ramped up. How do we maneuver all of the systems? So how do we put everything in order so that we feel somewhat in control? We know what comes next. We can prepare, you know, we can make preparation, we can anticipate, and it's also about how we control our responses to difficult situations. How do we control ourselves when things aren't going the way we have planned? So it's all about how to be organized for success in a nutshell, right? And that even includes how we respond to the good and the bad, because all of that is reflecting on how we can do it better.
Yeah. I like that. Okay. Because I know some folks personally who need a reflection.
We all need some adjustments, right? We all
Yeah,
need some adjustments. Yes.
yeah. Now for what do you for parents who are struggling with, trying to, I guess, find the right tools for their young people to achieve academic success. What do you say to them? What do you have anything in place for parents? Because you're a parent, you have two young adults, college graduate, one who will be graduating in May, right? May 20.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yep.
they're your legacy, your
Yes.
spelling legacy and sisters. And I know that parenting is hard, and we all want our young people to be successful, but sometimes they can really frustrate us. And so do you have any tools or advice for parents who are just trying to figure out how to help their young people? Because sometimes we don't know where to start, and we find ourselves kind of, going around in circles trying to figure out what's the best way to help our young people. So, what advice can you give, or what solutions do you have for parents?
They're asking that, my guinea pigs or my examples were Cameron and Corey. That's the name, CamCori Consulting. I just think that it's about, we make assumptions that students know certain things, and we have so many expectations of them. Parents have expectations of them. Teachers have expectations of them. They have things that they expect of themselves, or they're trying to meet everybody's needs, but we just have to take a step back and show them how to get it done. And so the biggest thing is we dish out academic planners, right? At the beginning of the school year, we buy these planners and we think that they're going to magically make it happen, but we have to teach them how to use them. And I would dare say that even adults, we need work on how to use it too, because they really become list makers, right? We're creating to-do lists, but then how do I fit that in my day? Because there's so much to do and there's only so many hours in the day to get it done, right? And so we really want to start out with sitting down with kids and talking about, let's look at the things that you have to do for school. You
Mhm.
know what? Because that's the most important, right? Make a list of what do you need to do for school. And kids need to understand that when you were told to do something on Monday, and maybe that assignment was due on Friday, or maybe even the following Friday, that doesn't mean that we put it off until the day before. We do have some time in each day to work on it a little bit at a time, right? And then after we make a list of that, now we want to list what do we got to do? Because there are some things that we got to do, right? We got to clean our rooms. We have chores, right? We got to do those things. We got to, whether it's mow the lawn, rake the leaves, wash the dishes, take out the garbage. We got to do some things, right? Maybe I'll even add one when you have special people in your life that give you gifts, you got to write a thank you note. Well, those are things that we have to do. We have to write those down. Then we have our extracurricular, right? Kids have after school, they have other commitments, maybe piano lessons or soccer practice or tennis practice, choir rehearsal. You have all of the extra things, hopefully, right? That give us balance. You know, those are where our superpowers shine that we have to work on. And then you look at those things, you're like, my goodness, my schedule is so flawed. When will I ever get it done? But when we take a look at our schedules after at a certain mere window of time, I would say between 5 and 9
Mhm.
each night, we can list out a little bit for each. You know, we know that we're going to eat dinner at a certain time every day, right? And then when are you going to do that math homework, right?
Yeah.
Now you can write that down. First, you write down all the homework that you're going to do or the assignments. I'll address homework. I do
Mhm.
want to talk about that homework piece, but I will say projects and assignments. Then you want to list the gotta do's. Kids need to write that down because they're going to forget, right? Especially college students. College students feel overloaded, or high school students. Let's say high school students feel overloaded because, especially those juniors and seniors, when it's time for the whole college application process, the scholarship search, it's just so many demands on our time. We need to sit down and do a little bit at a time so that on at some point on Saturday and Sunday, you should rest. You
Mhm.
should find time to scroll through social media,
Mhm.
to look through YouTube videos, to go to the movies with your friends. You should have time for mindless behavior,
Yeah.
right? But we got to take care of our business first.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just I was just thinking about my youngest, Khalees, who's the senior in high school,
Yes.
and she I would buy planners every year and then find them just off to the side somewhere. Why are you not using the planner? But what she said, well, because it just doesn't work for me. So she started to put things in her calendar. And so and I get it, but I am a paper, I have to feel. So, I realize that I'm kind of incorporating how I do things and what works for me, but everybody's different. So you do have to find that thing that works well. But I try to encourage her to incorporate both. You can still use planner, you can use your calendar as well. But it was just interesting a few days
When
ago,
you say calendar, is she using a digital calendar or
digital.
is it a technology? And see that there are studies about that while we are so digitized, right? We are so modern. The
Mhm.
brain responds better. The memory, it sticks when we write it down.
Yeah.
Mhm. We write it
Because
down.
exactly, because with the digital calendar, you still need a reminder to remind you to go look at the thing or to see what it is. And that's the way I am. I still need to write things down. It's
Yes.
I can tell you something as simple as exchanging contact information, like if I meet someone at a conference or what have you, And now everybody wants to pull out their phone and use these digital,
Those QR codes.
yes, with the blink or hello, hi. So, to your point of I have to have the physical, tangible card to remember and to associate with how I met the person. And so,
Yes.
and speaking of, we're in a society where that's all we do is use technology.
And
Um,
you know what happens is technology is used for so many things, right? Our cell phones, we use them for so many things. We
mhm,
use them for social media. We use them to watch movies. We use them for calendars. We use them for texting. They're used, we have different apps, workbook apps. Everything is exercise apps. I mean, fitness. So many things are on the phone, right? But the planner is just that one thing. It is just for that one thing. And so the car, a vehicle is for one thing. The kitchen, the oven is for cooking, and that this one little thing in this square world has created this black hole
yeah.
that we drown. We fall and we have no bearings and balance. And while they are helpful, they do have their benefits. We really have to go back to getting students to using them. And all schools all over, as a principal, I purchased planners, right? But I knew that that's what everybody wanted. And listen, I wanted them to have them, but I so desperately wanted my teachers to incorporate that into their everyday.
Mhm,
And it was a big lift for me
mhm,
to then insist that it was happening, right? Teachers who bought into my theory, I could see the benefits, I could see the impact it had on students, but hey, every teacher isn't organized either,
right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Organization is a people thing, it is a skill, you
Mhm,
know. And if I see, if your own dining room table is a mess, if your own purse in your car,
mhm,
you got a lot of things that how can you model that for students, right? And so it does require a muscle work, and those that really worked it and supported students with it, teachers whose classrooms were really organized and there was a method to the madness,
mhm.
that rubbed off on the students. It really did. It rubbed
And
off on the students.
I was going to say, and you could see the difference, the change in students.
You can see the difference. And even like I used to, some years ago, I actually had a blog. It was Dean of Parents some years ago.
Mhm,
And because, I would realize that I would set up my car for the girls. There was a basket of pencils and colored pencils, paper, anything that you needed because we had long car rides. I would have books, I would have penmanship books, workbooks. There was always time to get something done. In the car, if you had to come with me to an appointment and you had to wait for a while, there's always time to get things done, right? And then the reward factor, you want to go and do these things on Saturday or Sunday. Before we leave the house, we need to do this, right?
mhm,
Especially in the summer,
mhm.
because that's when we have that old summer slide happen.
Yes.
Because when school gets out, kids aren't thinking about, if we allow them not to think about anything, no math practice, no reading, no writing, then we get back to the beginning of the year and then we've kind of we our muscle memory, we got to work on those muscles again because they become flabby, right? And so those are things that I would encourage the girls that before we left the house, you have to work on XYZ. Did you write the thank you notes? We need to write these thank you notes before we do XYZ. Those things, and then you need to write it down. And so I still find um, they are gone out of the house, but as I am, as we are revamping our home, going through some papers,
Mhm,
revamping their rooms so that they can, I'm looking through and I can see what they used to write down. They used to write these lists down and I would tell them that, and I'm like, oh, wow, they really followed. I could see the benefits of that. following it. And we all have to practice.
Yeah.
This is not about perfection,
Right.
right? It's definitely not about expecting students to be perfect and remembering everything, because listen, we don't remember everything. In the world of Zoom calls and meetings and remembering everything that happens after work hours, I even forget sometimes. Oh, I had a Zoom meeting, because we will walk away and we don't write that down. And if you don't, and at my age, if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen. It didn't
Right.
happen. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just training everyone's muscle to take a few moments to write that down. And it starts at school. One of the things that parents ask, the first thing that you ask when you pick up your child is what you got for homework.
Mhm.
Right. And now things have changed with the homework realm. There's a lot of argument about is it, but I will argue that it's practice, right? It's the skills that teachers want students to practice.
Mhm.
The problem is everyone's home isn't set up to
Right.
accommodate that practice, right?
Mhm.
Parents, our parents are working hours, they're working at night, you
Yeah.
know, um, some kids don't have a home to go to,
Mhm.
they're in temporary living situations, right? And we don't have the materials. We don't have a desk. We don't have simple things like a desk to sit at, right?
Mhm.
So, or parents are doing all the homework for the kids. They're doing the homework for the kids. They're doing it. You should see some of these science fair projects and projects that teachers would assign and they would put them in the hallway. I was like, wow, like who paid who, right? I mean, this is who's competing, who's getting the grade here, right?
Yeah.
So that's we want, and then sometimes you assign and the kids don't do it. They don't do it because if you don't grade it, you're not giving me feedback immediately. I'm not getting feedback, so why bother? And and if I didn't, you're going to give me a chance to do it tomorrow. There's really the boundaries have kind of with loosey goosey with that. So
Yes.
I always say, instead of asking that, just ask kids, what skills do you need to work on?
Mm. I
What
like
is some what's something that you need to work on? Whether it's math, whether it's reading, maybe you have difficulty at comprehension or social studies. What is it that we can work on instead of what do you have for homework?
mm,
Right?
I like that. Now tell me, Romeldia, you've transitioned
Yeah.
from administration to now being a consultant. You have your own consulting firm, CamCori. So, what made you decide to launch CamCori, and what's your clientele? I know you've done some work with in the higher ed space.
Yes. Well, it was really just that, it was really just, what, I would love to do this part. That when I think about all of the things that I did as an administrator,
Mhm.
there's so many things, right? My favorite thing would be to support students, support parents with students, support teachers with this piece, with this
Mhm.
part, helping students with how to learn. That is the piece. And so I have written an academic planner for students to give step-by-step instruction on goal setting, actually how to use the planner for time management, you know, um, some organizational tips, some study strategies, just to help students be the goats of learning. And so that GOATS is actually goal setting, organization, how to use an academic planner, time management, and study strategies. The other piece is having been an administrator, especially for Chicago Public Schools, they're saying if you can make it in New York, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. There's
Yes.
so many things that I've learned, and here's not to say that I was the perfect polished administrator. I'd love to support schools with what to do and what not to do from some of the joys I experienced and some of the pains that I experienced. But really wanting to position myself to be in the position to support teachers with support principals with how to make distributive leadership happen. You know, how you don't have to do it all. um, People, there are such talented teachers in every building, how you can make magic happen by just putting people to work that want to work it, putting parents to work. Administrators are so inundated with the daily task of running a school, you know, but being in the position to support schools from a different vantage point of
Yeah.
what I would have done differently, and maybe what I would have told myself as I started as a leader.
Mhm.
So I definitely I have too much energy to stop. I just want to do it my way. I just want to do things in a different way,
Yeah.
and I'm so creative. I just want to use my creativity in a different way. And so
Well,
I'm excited about this. Yeah.
yeah, and we had an opportunity to have you out at the University of Illinois Chicago over the summer for our We Are One retreat, and you created, and I'll have to make sure I show this. You designed a success planner for our students. This population of students were our incoming freshmen, where we historically have a retreat so that we can introduce them to all of the various resources on campus, but then give them an opportunity to connect with each other. But you came in and you designed this planner, you facilitated a workshop for our students, connected with them, and a workshop for our parents as well, because that is, I don't care what anybody says, the parental piece is so important, and it does not end after high school.
Oh,
And it was you, Romeldia, who told me this when Kamal and Aaliyah began their first year of college. And you talked to me about how parenting is going to change. I think you recommended the book. Is it The Art of Listening?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
And I remember you talking about how your parenting changed with your girls when they went to college. And I embrace that because I think so. I'm a helicopter mom. I will not shy away from that. I
Yes.
will admit it. But I so appreciate my new role as a parent because now I'm like an advisor, because
Mhm.
they've been able to take, the tools and everything that you instill, like you were talking about with the girls, how you had them to make lists. And now that you're going through, some of their things and you're looking at these lists that they've written out. So they listen to what we're saying. They also observe our own behavior and our habits,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And so, um, it was important. I felt like it was important to include parents in this retreat that we coordinated at UIC, because when our students transition to college, the universities will say, well, they're adults now. You have to get permission. You have to get a FERPA waiver in order to talk about your student's account or to know anything that's going on. Yet, as parents, we are expected to pay tuition because our children
Ah, ah.
can't pay it.
Interesting piece, right?
Yes, very interesting. But a lot of parents don't know how to support their young adults when they transition to college. Like, what's their role? And I think it was great that you were able to have some one-on-one conversations with parents to, advise them, let them know what they may anticipate or what they should expect and how they can navigate, certain situations, but still be there to support their young people. Because I think sometimes we're so focused on um, completing the college application getting that missions letter, like we're so excited about that. Then it's decision day. And then when they get to school, now what?
Yes. And you know what? Experience is the best teacher,
Mhm.
and I have to pull from my own experience. And I think one of the things that's important for parents, whether you think some parents, hey, maybe you were the top student. I was not.
Mhm.
Okay. And so I had to pull from my experience as a student that did not use her time. I was just wide eyed um, at the just being on Spelman's campus. Morehouse was across the street,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
right? Clark was down the way. Morris Brown was around the corner.
Mhm.
It was exciting to be with uh, all of these amazing young Black people with
Mhm.
and there were parties and there were events, there were organizations, and there was just hanging out. And it was just, how do I dial it in and get things done? Right. And then there's this comparison piece, you know, um, trying to fit in, trying to find your space, trying to find your way. And all of that while parents are back at home wondering why they didn't call, why are you not doing, did you do, did you do, did you think? You got kids are going through incredible anxiety challenges right now that they were always probably brewing. But
Right.
now, when you're away from home in a new setting, you got to live with a roommate. It's all of the things, right? And so, I think that it was helpful for me to go back and remember what I experienced because it's the same story. It's the same story, different year, right?
Mhm.
And so, just trying to help them navigate by just being exactly that, an advisor, listening, doing more listening than telling
Then
them what
talking.
to do.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we tell a student what to do and we come across like they should have already known how to do that,
Mhm.
right? You need to go to the financial aid office every day. Did you go? Did you go talk to the advisor? Did you go speak to? Did you go do this? You need to do, and we have to adjust the
Mhm.
tone so that it's like, so I recommend you do the following. Check in with me. How is that working for you? How are you feeling? And when a student calls to just blurt out all the things that they're going through, we just need to just listen and repeat back what they're saying. So
Yeah.
you say that you're having a difficult time with your roommate, huh? Your roommate getting on your last nerves, huh? I'm so sorry you're going through that. The cafeteria food is awful. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry about that. Just listening to them. I don't like my professor. They don't like me. Nobody likes me. Just listen
Yeah.
because we're so quick to come in our Olivia Pope moment and fix it.
Mhm.
We become Olivia Popes and we're fixing it, and kids are like, I just need it. A lot of times they just need to vent.
Yeah.
They know how to solve it because guess what? If we also go back and remember, we didn't have access to our parents
Mhm.
immediately. You
Right.
had to either fight to wait for the payphone or
Mhm.
wait until your next year to maybe you could afford to pay for a landline, right? You can call. And even then, you dare not call your parents at work. You called later on. And if you waited to call them at 9 o'clock, by that time you would have solved whatever problem it was that you were having. So you
Mhm.
didn't call. You talked to your friends. You
Mhm.
talked to, so it's a matter of allowing them the space to sort of figure it out and know that for them, experience is the best teacher too. And they're going to have some bumps in the road.
Yeah.
But those bumps and bruises are going to turn into, hopefully, right, them doing some reflection to make some improvement so that that thing doesn't happen again, or I can make something better happen for myself. So it's just a matter of pulling all of those executive functionings together because guess what? The brain isn't fully developed for women until they are 26, 25, 26, and for boys, even later than that, So it just takes a lot of practice and time, to develop that. But But I go back to one of the things I said at the beginning. We do what we want to do. We focus on what we want to focus on, right? And so, listen, I'm watching these shows, this one show, Money Game. It's about the name, image, and likeness for college athletes. And they highlight these players, like, let's say, Angel Reese. I think his name is Jaden Smith. These top players that get paid in college because they're using their name. The college is using their name, image, and likeness. They're making millions, so they need to get a cut of that too. But these players didn't become great overnight. They worked at it because they loved it, right? They loved doing it. And so they worked at it. They developed the muscle memory. They get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, track those runners. They get up at 6 o'clock to practice. They know how to run those hurdles from memory, that muscle memory. It's the exact same thing that we need to give our students, that same mindset. You got to work on it in order to be great at it. People who are successful in business, it looks so easy. Beyonce says, I woke up like this.
Right.
She did not wake
Right.
up like this.
Right.
She works super hard. And that's why a lot of people have so much respect for her craft, because of what she put into it. And we want kids to understand the same thing, right? They looking at Instagram, they're looking at social media, TikTok, and they're oohing and on about these people that spent an incredible amount of time, getting it right. And that's all we want our students to do. What's your goal, right? What do you want to do? How are you going to do that every day? What are you going to commit to every day to get closer to your goal? What do you anticipate might get in your way? How can you stop and avoid that, right? And then how are you going to stay organized for success? Where are you going to put your papers? Where are you going to put your calendars? How are you going to keep your book bag? How are you going to manage your study space, whether it's a desk, wherever you study, right? And then how do you use that academic planner? How do you put it to use? Because you can't say it doesn't work for me if you don't work it, right? In order for the planner to work, you got to work the planner. And then how do we create time? How do we manage our time or manage ourselves so that we can manage time? And then what are our study strategies? How often are we studying? College students specifically don't get it. They think that, oh, I study about 5 hours a week and I get it. But the average amount of time for a student to maintain at least a 3.5 grade point average in college is 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
30 hours a week. And it sounds like a lot, but when you break that down per day, it's really 4 to 5 hours a day that you're spending, right? And so what do you do in that 4 to 5 hours? What are you doing? You hanging out with your friends, you spend a little more time in that cafeteria than you probably should have. You were scrolling through TikTok, scrolling through social media for a little bit. You slept a little bit longer than you probably should have. You went to that party and you probably shouldn't have, and it was on a Tuesday.
Right.
So there are a lot of things that we can make adjustments for, because that person who is number one, that person who is at the top of whatever game that is, they have put in the time that you don't even realize, right? They forfeited so many things so they could be number one. And so we need to do the same thing, because we want to be good. We're not talking about perfect, but at the end of this, there's the next phase of trying to get into the best school, to get the scholarship for the school, to get in the organizations that you want when you're at the school.
Right.
And after that, when you graduate, and then to get the job, right? To get in whatever grad school or medical school, or to land a position. And once you get the job, now I want to get a promotion. Now I want to. So there are so many levels to this in life that require us to manage ourselves in that space of being organized, that executive function. It never stops.
Mm-hmm.
It never stops.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is true indeed. So you have an upcoming webinar in
yeah, so
November,
I
right?
yeah, so I am preparing to do a webinar for parents
Uh,
so that they can sign their students up to look and see the benefits of using an academic planner and eventually developing self-paced online module courses for students to access it on their own.
okay.
And so I'm really still building that out
Mm-hmm.
so that students can log on at their own pace and
Mm-hmm.
learn the specifics of what I'm sharing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
When is the do you have the date for the
I
webinar?
am, I am, I had November 2nd. I'm saying November, I think the weekend after that, November 16th. So
Okay.
that's Saturday, November 16th, that I will start, I want parents to sign up on CamCori.com for additional information about that, as well as all of the resources that I have, the tips, blog information, PDFs, everything that will be available to parents to sign up for.
So I know that there are some school districts that could also benefit from your services. Are you expanding your services to work with school districts, even outside of Chicago Public Schools?
Well, absolutely. I definitely am available to do professional development for teachers in this area, but any capacity that principals would like to collaborate to have my services. But eventually, I do want to have districts have these online modules available for their students to do on their own pace.
Mhm.
Because again, the demands on teachers is quite a lot, and then here comes another PD, right? Here comes yet another PD. But I really want to just give tips. It's just really simple tips and strategies on how to integrate these skills into daily instruction so that it doesn't seem like so much. And a
Mhm.
lot of it is even giving time for teachers. We talk about self care a lot right now. Being organized is also a form of self care, you
Absolutely.
know. So if we can't take care of other people's children until we take care of ourselves. And
Yeah.
so a lot of teachers are burned out, they are overwhelmed, there's a lot expected of them. And they are people too. They are mothers, they are fathers, they have the weight of the world on them while standing in front of other people's children. And so really being able to provide some PD and some support with how tips and strategies with how teachers can start with helping themselves so that they can have clarity of mind to help students get organized as well.
Yeah. Well, I am looking forward to hearing all of the great things that you are continuing to do to support administrators, teachers, parents, and of course our
Yes.
students. So I'm excited for you and CamCori Consulting. Um, Tell the folks where they can find you, what's your website, if they can email you or if you're on social media, just so
Yes, absolutely. CamCori.com. CamCori.com. Definitely sign up so that you can get on my mailing list. I am on IG, CamCori Consultant. I also have Facebook, CamCori. And if anyone wants to email me, it is rsalter@camcori.com.
all
And
right.
so I look forward to it. Yes. Thank you so much for the time.
Oh, you are absolutely, you're quite welcome. I want to thank you publicly for the support that you've given to me just as a parent and the capacity of trying to help support students at UIC. Like I said, you came in this summer, you were absolutely phenomenal. I think the students loved you. There was this one young lady, oh, she was so cute. because she came up to you and just started talking and was talking about what she was going to incorporate. I was like, okay, she got the message. She
Well,
understood.
the one thing that I loved was when a couple of the students said, if someone had told me this when I was in middle school or early on, like, because you think it seems so simple,
Mhm.
it does, and it is, but if you haven't been introduced to certain simple things, that's
Right.
all we want to do. We don't want to, it could all be so simple, but we rather make it hard.
Mhm.
We just want the simple things to
Yeah.
to make our lives a little easier. Yeah.
And so that's why it's important to start early. Start
Yes.
early, because it saves so much time and it gives our young people the opportunity to practice and develop the skills so that when they become older and even in the workplace, I mean, because these are tools that they're going to take with them and utilize. So it's so important to start early, exposing our young people to the tools that are going to help them succeed. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
thank you for in your transition. Thank you for not retiring, Romeldia, and just transitioning to helping us help our young people. So I appreciate
Yes.
you and all of
Thank
the
you
work
so much.
you do. Thank you so much for being a guest on Light It Up. You definitely have an open invitation to come back and be a guest on Light It Up. So thank
Yes,
you
I
for
would
being
love that. Thank
awesome.
you.
So, to everyone who has tuned in with us this week, thank you so much. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast. Share this episode with a friend and make sure you reach out to Romeldia Salter of CamCori Consulting and bring her into your school building or
Yes,
sign up for that webinar, parents,
that's right.
to make sure that your students will be able to get the tools that they'll need to succeed. So make sure you join me next week to see what very interesting guests I will have on the podcast. And until next time, remember to continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle at Light It Up Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.